Hey Bear Buddies, thanks for joining me for Volume 40 of Furberries Fables. If you like it, please remember to hit that like button down below and leave a comment as it really helps my channel out. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I currently have a subscriber goal of 200 by Halloween, so any support with that would be greatly appreciated. Today's story is What Lives Underneath the Bridge by Reddit user Lonedonut. The Gardner Bridge was built long, long ago. Most of the villagers couldn't remember when it was constructed. It was just there one day. It ran over the South Creek and was made of smooth gray stone. It led from out of town to some farmland, mainly to the McRobinson farm. The farm had been in the McRobinson family since they settled there in 1342. They were kind and friendly folk, but they also claimed to not have built the bridge. For generations, the bridge developed a sinister reputation. People would go missing when crossing it, and there would be no trace of them left behind. They just simply vanished. Typically, the disappearances would happen at night, and only when they were traveling alone. Because of this, parents would tell their children not to play near the bridge, and certainly never to cross it alone. Even during the day, villagers would take the long way around, farther downstream, instead of crossing the Gardner Bridge alone. Rumors spread that it was ghosts or angry spirits that caused the disappearances. One story stated that it was haunted by a young woman who threw herself off the bridge when her fiancé ran off with another woman. She kidnaps people because she is forever lonely and looking for companionship. Another story is that the ancient spirits of nature had a gateway between our world and the spiritual that was underneath the bridge. When the bridge was built, it sealed the gateway and trapped the spirits on our side of the gate. Angry, they dragged victims off the bridge, never to be seen again. All these stories spread, but there was never any hard evidence that one was true. That was until Harry came running into town one night, screaming and crying. He rushed up and down the main road, screaming about a creature under the bridge. His adrenaline was so high he couldn't get himself to stop running. Villagers awoke, and the strongest amongst them caught Harry and forced him down. They tried to calm him and begged for him to tell them what had happened. What creature under the bridge? Harry took hours to calm, constantly repeating the same sentence over and over again. It's a bridge of monsters. They're coming. They had thrown him in the town jail cell until he calmed, which only occurred when the sun's rays started to spill over the horizon. Harry suddenly collapsed in his cell, exhausted and barely conscious. They brought him water and calmly asked again, though unsure if they wanted to know the answer. What is under the bridge? Harry gulped down the water and gasped, catching his breath. Then he began. The night prior, Harry and his brother Thomas were planning on doing some late-night fishing. The South Creek was swarming with small bass this time of year, and it was a good time to go out and collect while the other fishermen slept. They gathered their fishing gear and headed out. They walked out of town and down the dirt road leading to the creek. Harry was about to take the fork in the road leading to the other bridge further downstream when his brother stopped him. No one ever fishes at Gardner. I bet there are scores of bass there. We should try it, Thomas said, his eyes looking up the path towards the looming gray bridge ahead of them. Harry snorted and replied, And get taken like the rest of them people? No thank you. I want to live long enough to see you get a girlfriend. Thomas glared at him, then his eyes went back to the bridge. You can walk all the way down there, but I'm going to fish up here. With that, Thomas threw his fishing pole over his shoulder and marched his way up the path. Left standing alone watching his brother go, Harry felt a trembling shiver go up his spine. He quickly ran after his brother, nervously scanning the woods surrounding them. When they reached the bridge, they paused. The woods around them were eerily quiet, other than the babbling of the creek below. Thomas took a deep breath, then dramatically stepped onto the bridge. Frozen with fear, Harry watched his brother and the woods. His eyes jumped from place to place, searching for ghosts or angry spirits. Thomas climbed to the peak of the bridge and set his tackle box down on the stone wall. The creek water was black and uninviting. Yesterday's storm had raised the water level, and now the water rushed past underneath the pale stone. Harry stood on the edge of the bridge, not brave enough to join his brother. He stood trembling and pale. His fishing rod rattled in his shaking arms as he watched Thomas. Thomas chuckled at his trembling brother, only to help assure himself. He was deeply terrified, and his fingers trembled badly as he tried to bait the hook. After multiple attempts, he finally slipped the wiggling worm onto the hook. He stood proudly lifting his arms up to cast. He glanced one final time over at his brother, then cast the line into the dark water below. The ground shook violently as a large gray hand slammed onto the bridge beside Thomas. The man fell backwards and shrieked. Harry felt his eyes grow wide and watched in silent horror. Another large hand gripped the wall, and a large pale mass was beginning to rise between them. Thomas scurried back away from the rising creature and pushed himself against the opposite wall. The large face looking back at the man was angry and dark. Two large beady eyes glowered at the man, and a large bulbous nose sniffed the air. The frown was deep and settled. A low growl escaped it as it snarled. The teeth were square and jagged, much like a human's. When it was fully risen, it towered over the bridge. Its chest was gray, and it had scars running across it. A large droplet of drool ran from the corner of the creature's mouth and slowly made its way down the creature's cheek and onto its chest. Harry felt his bowels release, and he vibrated with fear. Thomas screamed again, but was cut short by the creature's hand lunging at him. It wrapped around the man and squeezed. Harry heard a sickening crunch, and blood gushed out from between the creature's fingers. They both stayed frozen. Blood dripped and started to pool on the stone. Very slowly, the creature's dark eyes went from its hand over to the trembling man to his right. As soon as Harry and the creature's eyes met, Harry ran. As he ran from the scene, he heard the creature speak one thing. Its voice was deep and guttural, and Harry felt his body vibrate with every word. They engraved themselves into his bones, and as he repeated the words to the villagers, he paled deeply and started to cry. The creature said,
"I want more."
Hey Bear Buddies, thanks again for joining me for this volume of Furberries Fables. If you liked it and you want to support my work further, you can find a link below to my Patreon account as well as my merch store. Thanks again for listening. Have a great day.